The sound of the slap cracked through the air like thunder. The piano music stopped mid-note. Every guest's breath caught. At table 1, a young waitress stood frozen, her cheek burning red, physically trapped between the two most feared people in the city, Jae-won Kang, the Korean Mafia boss, and his wife, Yura. Yura's lips curled into a satisfied smile, expecting her husband to finish what she'd started. Instead, Jae-won Kang released the waitress's wrist, studied the bruise forming on her pale face, then turned to his wife with eyes colder than death itself. He didn't break the waitress's hand. He did something that would shatter the entire underworld, and it began with 3 words that changed everything: "You are finished." The storm clouds hung heavy over Seoul as rain streaked down the towering windows of the Azure Pearl, the city's most exclusive fine dining establishment. This wasn't the kind of place ordinary people could enter. A meal here cost more than most families earned in a month. It was a fortress of crystal chandeliers, imported Italian marble, and conversations conducted in whispers. To secure a reservation, you didn't just need wealth. You needed connections that reached into the shadows. But for Maya Fields, it was simply another exhausting night on her feet. Maya smoothed down her black vest, trying to ignore the sharp ache radiating through her lower back. She'd already worked a morning shift at the coffee shop downtown, and now she was 6 hours into her evening shift here. She couldn't afford to slow down. Her student loan notices were turning from yellow to red, her tiny apartment rent was 3 weeks overdue, and her grandmother's medication costs kept climbing like a mountain she'd never summit. She tucked a loose strand of brown hair back into her neat bun and lifted the heavy silver tray loaded with vintage bottles of Dom Perignon. "Table 1 needs immediate service," Mr. Kim, the floor manager, whispered urgently as he passed her, his face pale with tension. "And Maya, whatever you do, don't make eye contact." "That's Jae-won Kang." The name made every staff member in the kitchen go silent. Jae-won Kang. He wasn't just another wealthy businessman with deep pockets. He was the Shadow King of Korea's underworld. Stories about him circulated like ghost tales. They said he inherited the Kang Syndicate at 27 after his father's violent death and turned it into an empire. They said he'd never been defeated in business or battle. He was 35 now, a man who moved through Seoul like a predator through fog, dangerous, silent, and completely untouchable. Tonight, he was dining with his wife, Yura Kang. Yura came from old political money, the daughter of a disgraced assemblyman. Their marriage was a calculated alliance, power bonded to power with no room for warmth. She was striking, with sharp cheekbones and designer clothes that cost more than cars, but her eyes held no kindness. She treated the staff not as people, but as obstacles that occasionally got in her way. Maya drew in a slow breath, steadying her trembling hands. "Just serve the table. Collect your wages. Survive another day." If this story has you hooked on explosive drama and forbidden romance, do me a huge favor right now, hit that like button. Share this video with anyone who craves intense mafia love stories, and please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss what happens next. Seriously, you need to subscribe because Maya's story is about to take a turn that will leave you speechless. This is only the beginning of her dangerous journey into Jae-won Kang's dark world. Maya's wrist burned where Jae-won's fingers encircled it, but then something shifted. His grip loosened, transformed from restraint into something else entirely. His thumb pressed gently against the inside of her wrist, finding her pulse point. Her heart was hammering so violently she was certain he could feel it racing beneath her skin. "Her pulse is erratic," Jae-won said, his voice cutting through the suffocating silence of the restaurant. He wasn't speaking to Maya. He was speaking to the room, to his wife, to the 50 witnesses holding their breath at surrounding tables. "You've terrified a working woman half your size." Yura's confident smile faltered. "Jae-won, she was disrespectful. She spilled water." His words were ice. "You struck her across the face in front of my associates." He released Maya's wrist completely, his attention now fixed entirely on his wife. Do you understand what you've done? The restaurant seemed to tilt. Maya swayed slightly, but Jaewon's hand moved to steady her elbow, surprisingly gentle. He guided her back half a step, creating distance between her and Yura. Look at me, he commanded, and Maya realized with shock that he was speaking to his wife, not her. Yura's face had gone pale beneath her makeup. This woman is not your servant. She is the granddaughter of Park Jin-soo. The name detonated like a bomb. Maya's head snapped up. Her grandfather? The one who died when she was 12? Several guests gasped. Even Mr. Kim, still frozen near the kitchen doors, looked stunned. That's impossible, Yura hissed. Park Jin-soo had no family. Park Jin-soo saved my life when I was a boy, Jaewon continued, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. He asked one thing of me before he died. Protect his granddaughter if she ever needed it. His eyes, dark and merciless, fixed on Yura. You just gave me that reason. He snapped his fingers once. Two men in black suits materialized from the shadows near the bar, moving with military precision. Maya recognized them as the security detail that had been stationed discreetly throughout the evening. Escort Miss Fields to the south private room. Get her water, a cold compress, and anything else she requires. Jaewon's hand slipped away from Maya's elbow. No one touches her. No one speaks to her. Am I clear? Yes, sir. The guards flanked Maya, their presence both protective and surreal. One of them, a man with kind eyes despite his intimidating build, gestured toward a discreet hallway. This way, miss. Maya's legs felt disconnected from her body, but she moved, glancing back once to see Jaewon reaching inside his suit jacket. He withdrew a crisp manila envelope and placed it on the table between the champagne flutes and Yura's untouched appetizer. These are divorce papers, he said, loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. Sign them tonight, or I'll freeze every account your family has in this city by morning. The last thing Maya saw before the hallway door closed was Yura's face, twisted with rage and disbelief, and Jaewon standing over her like a judge delivering a sentence with no possibility of appeal. 3 days later, Maya told herself she was being paranoid. The incident at the Azure Pearl felt like a fever dream, something that happened to someone else. She'd taken Mr. Kim's advice and called in sick for the remainder of the week, but her savings account was bleeding out, and she couldn't hide forever. Bills didn't pause for trauma. So she went back to her morning shift at the coffee shop in Hongdae, pulling espresso shots and forcing smiles at customers who didn't notice the fading bruise on her cheek that makeup couldn't quite hide. Normal. She needed normal. But normal had teeth now. The black sedan appeared on Tuesday morning, idling across the street from the coffee shop. The same black sedan was parked 2 blocks from her apartment that evening. Different location, same tinted windows that reflected her face back at her like a dark mirror. On Wednesday, a man in a gray hoodie sat at the bus stop near her building for 3 hours, never boarding a bus, his eyes tracking her window. Maya's hands shook as she locked her apartment door that night, shoving her flimsy bookshelf against it for extra security. She told herself it meant nothing. Seoul was a big city. Coincidences happened. Thursday shattered that delusion. She was walking home from the convenience store, a bag of instant ramen and bottled water dangling from her wrist, when she noticed him. A man in a leather jacket, walking too close, matching her pace exactly. When she sped up, he sped up. When she slowed down, he slowed down. Maya's breath came faster. She turned down a side street, her neighborhood shortcut. The man followed. Her fingers fumbled for her phone, but before she could dial, a motorcycle roared past her, so close the wind whipped her hair across her face. The rider twisted to look back at her, his face hidden behind a dark helmet, and she saw it. The camera. He'd been photographing her. She ran. Her apartment building had never seemed so far away. Her lungs burned. The bag of ramen slipped from her wrist and scattered across the pavement. She didn't stop. Behind her, footsteps pounded closer. The man in the leather jacket was sprinting now, no longer pretending. Maya slammed through her building's entrance, practically falling against the elevator button. The doors opened with agonizing slowness. She threw herself inside and hammered the close button, watching through the narrowing gap as the man in the leather jacket burst into the lobby. Their eyes met for one terrible second before the doors sealed shut. When she reached her floor, her neighbor, Mrs. Song, was standing in the hallway watering her plants. The elderly woman took one look at Maya's face and gasped. "Dear girl, what's wrong?" Maya couldn't speak. She fumbled with her keys, finally getting inside and locking every bolt. Only then did she see it. Someone had slipped an envelope under her door. Inside was a single photograph. Maya, walking to work that morning. Across her face, someone had drawn a red X in marker. On the back, written in elegant handwriting, "Homewrecker. 50 million won." Yura had put a price on her head. Maya didn't sleep. She sat with her back against the door, the photograph clutched in her trembling hands, watching the windows as dawn broke over Seoul. Every creak of the building, every distant siren made her flinch. When her phone buzzed at 6 a.m., she nearly screamed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Miss Fields, this is Han. I work for Mr. Kong. Stay away from your windows and don't open your door for anyone. We're 2 minutes out." The line went dead. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. 2 minutes felt like 2 hours. She crawled to the bathroom, the only room without windows, and waited in the bathtub with a kitchen knife gripped in her shaking hands. The explosion of splintering would came from her neighbor's apartment. Mrs. Song's scream cut off abruptly. Heavy footsteps pounded through the hallway. They'd gone to the wrong door first. She had seconds. Her apartment door shuddered under a violent impact. The bookshelf she'd wedged against it scraped across the floor. Another impact. The wood began to crack. Then gunfire. Sharp, deafening cracks that made her ears ring. Shouting in Korean. More shots. A heavy thud against her door, then silence so complete it felt like the world had stopped breathing. "Miss Fields." It was Han's voice, steady and calm. "It's safe. We need to move now." She emerged from the bathroom on legs that barely held her to find her apartment door hanging open. 2 men in black suits stood in her destroyed doorway, weapons drawn. On the hallway floor, a man in tactical gear lay motionless, blood pooling beneath him. Mrs. Song's door was also open, the elderly woman being tended to by another guard. "She'll be fine." "Just frightened," Han said, reading Maya's expression. "But you need to come with us." Yura sent a 3-man team. "We stopped them, but more will come." The drive through Seoul's early morning streets passed in a blur of adrenaline and shock. They took her to Gangnam, to a sleek glass tower that pierced the clouds like a blade. The penthouse occupied the entire top floor, a fortress of bulletproof windows, marble floors, and enough security cameras to monitor a small country. Jaewon was waiting in the living room, still wearing last night's clothes, exhaustion evident in the shadows under his eyes. He'd been awake too, she realized. Waiting for news. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a leather sofa that probably cost more than her yearly salary. "You're safe here." Maya sat because her legs gave out. "Why?" The word came out broken. "Why is she doing this?" We didn't." "I know." Jaewon poured her water from a crystal decanter, pressing the glass into her hands. "Yura doesn't care about truth. She cares about control, and I took that from her." He sat across from her, elbows on his knees. "Your grandfather, Park Jin-soo, saved my life when I was 15. My father's enemies tried to kill me. Park hid me for 3 months, taught me how to survive, how to think like a strategist instead of a victim. When my father finally eliminated the threat, Park asked for nothing. No money, no favors. Just one promise." His dark eyes met hers, and she saw something raw there, something that looked like old grief. He made me swear that if his granddaughter ever needed protection, I would provide it. No questions asked. Jaewon's jaw tightened. I owe him a debt I can never repay. But I can keep you alive. Maya spent the first 2 days in the penthouse like a ghost, wandering between the guest room and the kitchen, afraid to touch anything that looked too expensive. Which was everything. Jaewon worked from his office, visible through glass walls, conducting business in rapid Korean and occasional English, while his guards rotated shifts at every entrance. She was safe, but she was also trapped. On the third morning, he found her staring out at the city from the floor-to-ceiling windows, Seoul sprawling beneath them like a circuit board of lights and lives continuing without her. Yura's lawyers are stalling the divorce, Jaewon said without preamble. He stood beside her, hands in his pockets, his reflection sharp in the glass. Her family has connections in the courts. It could take months, maybe a year. Maya's stomach dropped. A year? I can't hide here for a year. I have a life, student loans, my grandmother needs. You can't go back to that life. His voice was gentle but firm. The bounty is still active. Yura's made you infamous in certain circles. Every mercenary and desperate criminal in Seoul knows your face now. The water glass she'd been holding slipped from her fingers, but Jaewon caught it before it hit the marble floor. Their hands touched briefly. His was warm, steady. Hers was ice. Then what am I supposed to do? The question came out as a whisper. Just disappear? No. Jaewon set the glass on a side table and turned to face her fully. You become untouchable. He paused, measuring his words. In our world, there are rules. Old laws that even someone like Yura can't break without consequences. One of those laws is sacred. You cannot harm the acknowledged partner of a syndicate head. Maya's breath caught. You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend? Not pretend. Publicly acknowledge. His expression was unreadable. I propose a contract relationship. To the outside world, you are mine. My fiancé. Under Mafia law, that makes you protected by every code and custom that governs our world. Yura touches you, she violates centuries of tradition. Her own family would turn on her. And what do you get out of this? Maya heard the edge in her own voice. No one does something for nothing in your world. Jaewon's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. Political capital. Yura embarrassed me by striking you in public. This shows I value you more than I ever valued her. It humiliates her completely and strengthens my position. He was being honest at least. No false promises of selfless nobility. You'd live here, attend events with me, play the part. In exchange, you're safe, your debts are cleared, and your grandmother receives the best medical care money can buy. It was a cage wrapped in silk. But the alternative was a target on her back and a grave before her 25th birthday. How long, she asked. Until the divorce is final and Yura is no longer a threat. Could be 6 months. Could be 2 years. Maya looked at the city again, at the life she'd never be able to return to. Her tiny apartment was a crime scene now. Her job was impossible. Her freedom was already gone. At least this way, she'd survive. She turned to face him, meeting those dark, calculating eyes that had destroyed his wife's world in 3 words. I'll do it. But I want it in writing. Every promise, every term. If I'm selling my freedom, I want a contract that protects me from you too. For the first time since she'd met him, Jaewon smiled. A real smile that reached his eyes. Smart girl. Your grandfather would be proud. He extended his hand. Maya stared at it for a long moment before taking it. His grip was firm, sealing a deal that would change everything. Welcome to the underworld, Miss Fields. The stylist arrived at dawn with 3 assistants and enough garment bags to fill the penthouse's spare bedroom. Maya stood in the center of the chaos, wearing her oldest jeans and a coffee-stained sweater, feeling like an imposter at her own transformation. Everything goes, the stylist, a severe woman named Madame Choi, announced in crisp English, eyeing Maya's clothes with the kind of disdain usually reserved for week-old garbage. The hair, the posture, the apologetic way she holds herself. We're not polishing a diamond here. We're forging a weapon. Jae-won leaned against the doorframe, watching with dark amusement. She needs to walk into a room and make Yura's allies nervous. Can you do that? Madam Choi's red lips curved into something predatory. Mr. Kong, I once made a governor's daughter look like a K-pop idol. I can make your waitress look like a queen. The first day was torture. Madam Choi made Maya walk back and forth across the penthouse in 6-inch Louboutins until her feet bled through the leather. Again, she barked each time Maya wobbled. You don't walk like you're asking permission to exist. You walk like you own the ground beneath you. Again. Her hair was cut, colored, and styled into sleek waves that framed her face. The bruise on her cheek had faded, but the makeup artist still worked for an hour, transforming her features with contouring that sharpened her cheekbones and made her eyes look dangerous instead of afraid. The clothes were armor disguised as fashion. A black Valentino dress that hugged every curve. A crimson Givenchy gown with a slit that went to her thigh. Tailored Armani pantsuits in ivory and charcoal. Each outfit cost more than she'd earned in a year of double shifts. You're not Maya Fields anymore, Madam Choi said, circling her like a shark. You're the woman who brought Jae-won Kang to his knees. Act like it. The second part of the transformation was harder. Jae-won's head of security, a woman named Seo-yoon with a scar across her jaw and eyes like frozen steel, taught her the language of power. Eye contact, Seo-yoon instructed, standing across from Maya in the training room Jae-won apparently kept in his penthouse. When someone challenges you, you don't look away first. Ever. That's submission. Maya forced herself to hold Seo-yoon's intimidating gaze. Her instinct was to drop her eyes, to apologize, to make herself smaller. Everything she'd learned as a waitress working for tips. Better, Seo-yoon said. Now the voice. You don't ask questions that sound like apologies. You don't say, I'm sorry, unless you're delivering a threat. Repeat after me, I don't think we've met. Maya cleared her throat. I don't think we've met? No. Without the question mark. Like you don't care if you've met them or not. They practiced for hours. How to dismiss someone with a glance. How to move through a crowd like it would part for her because it had no choice. How to smile without warmth, creating distance instead of friendliness. On the 5th day, Jae-won came home from a meeting to find Maya in the living room wearing a black silk dress that cost more than a car, her hair swept up to expose the elegant line of her neck. She was practicing her walk, and she didn't wobble once. He stopped in the doorway, his expression shifting to something Maya couldn't quite read. Well, she asked, and her voice didn't shake. Will I pass? Jae-won studied her for a long moment, then smiled slowly. Yura is going to lose her mind. Maya's reflection in the window showed a stranger. Someone powerful. Someone dangerous. Someone who could survive in Jae-won Kang's world. She just hoped Maya Fields was still in there somewhere. The Shilla Hotel ballroom glittered like a dragon's hoard, all crystal chandeliers and champagne fountains. Seoul's underworld elite moved through the space in designer suits and couture gowns, their conversations polite veneers over negotiations that could topple governments. This was the annual syndicate gathering, where every major player came to display their power and forge alliances that would shape the city's criminal landscape for the coming year. Maya's hand rested lightly on Jae-won's arm as they entered, her blood-red Givenchy gown drawing every eye in the room. She'd practiced this entrance 100 times with Seo-yoon. Chin up. Shoulders back. Walk like the floor was built for you. They're staring, Maya whispered, her smile fixed and serene. Let them, Jae-won murmured, his hand covering hers. You're the woman who replaced Yura Kang. That makes you the most interesting person in this room. Whispers followed them like smoke. Maya caught fragments as they passed. That's her. The waitress. She doesn't look like a waitress now. Some gazes held curiosity, others calculation, and a few held naked hostility. Yura's allies, no doubt. Then Maya saw her. Across the ballroom, near the bar, Yura stood in a white Chanel gown that probably cost a fortune, but made her look washed out and desperate. Her platinum hair was swept into an elaborate updo, her makeup perfect, but her eyes were wild. She'd lost weight. The divorce was destroying her, and everyone could see it. Their eyes met across the crowded room. Yura's champagne flute trembled in her hand. "She's coming over," Jae-won said quietly. "Remember what Seo-yoon taught you." Maya's instinct was to hide behind Jae-won, to run, to apologize. Instead, she straightened her spine and met Yura's approach with steady eyes. "Don't look away first. Never look away first." Yura stopped 3 feet away, close enough that Maya could smell her expensive perfume mixed with the sour edge of desperation. "So this is what you've become," Yura said, her voice dripping with contempt. "My husband's little project. Tell me, do you practice your manners in the mirror, or does he train you like a dog?" The old Maya would have flinched, stammered, apologized. The new Maya tilted her head slightly, letting a small smile play at her lips. "I don't think we've been properly introduced," she said, her voice cool and measured. "I'm Maya Fields, Jae-won's fiancé." She paused just long enough to let that word sink in. "And you are?" Yura's face went crimson. Several nearby conversations stopped. Someone nearby actually gasped. "You know exactly who I am," Yura hissed, stepping closer. "I am the woman whose life you destroyed, you little." "The woman who struck a waitress for spilling water?" Maya interrupted, not raising her voice, not backing away. Seo-yoon's training echoed in her mind. Control the narrative. "The woman whose husband found her so unbearable he divorced her in front of 50 witnesses? Yes, I remember you." Jae-won's hand tightened slightly on her waist, a silent signal of approval. Yura looked like she might actually strike Maya again, her hand twitching at her side. But they were surrounded by witnesses, by cameras, by the very rules that now protected Maya. She couldn't touch her. Not here. Not ever. "This isn't over," Yura whispered, her voice shaking with rage. Maya leaned in slightly, close enough that only Yura could hear her next words. "Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet." Then she turned away, dismissing Yura as if she were nothing more than an inconvenient interruption, and let Jae-won guide her toward a group of business associates who were waiting to meet the woman who'd brought down the infamous Yura Kong. Behind them, Yura stood frozen in the middle of the ballroom, publicly humiliated for the second time by the same girl she'd once slapped with impunity. The raid came at 4 a.m., a coordinated assault by Seoul's anti-corruption task force. Maya woke to the sound of boots thundering through the penthouse, voices shouting commands in Korean, and the harsh glare of flashlights cutting through the darkness. Jae-won was already out of bed, pulling on clothes with the practiced efficiency of a man who'd prepared for this scenario 100 times. "Stay in here," he ordered, his voice sharp and controlled even as officers pounded on the bedroom door. "Don't say anything without a lawyer present. This is a shakedown, nothing more." They took him away in handcuffs, a spectacle designed to humiliate. Maya watched from the window as they paraded him through the building's lobby where reporters had mysteriously gathered at such an early hour. Someone had tipped them off. This wasn't a legitimate investigation. This was theater. Han stayed behind with 2 other guards, their faces grim. "It's Yura's people in the prosecutor's office," he explained, making calls to Jae-won's legal team. "Fabricated evidence of money laundering. Mr. Kang will be out by noon, but they wanted him distracted." The words hung in the air like a threat. Distracted from what? Maya found out 3 hours later, when Han left to coordinate Jae-won's release. She was alone in the penthouse with Min Seo, one of the newer guards, a quiet man who'd only been with them for 2 weeks. He'd been recommended by someone trusted. Or so they'd thought. "Miss Fields," Min Seo said, bringing her tea in the living room. "Mr. Kang asked me to take you to a secondary location. The penthouse may be compromised." Something in his voice was wrong. Too flat. Too rehearsed. Maya's hand froze halfway to the teacup. Han didn't mention anything about moving me. It was a last-minute decision. Minseo's hand moved to his jacket. Please, miss. We need to go now. Maya saw the syringe the moment he pulled it out. She threw the hot tea in his face and ran. The penthouse was huge, but there was nowhere to go. The elevator required a keycard. The stairs were locked from the inside. She made it to Jaewon's office before Minseo caught her, his hand clamping over her mouth, the chemical smell of chloroform filling her nose. Sorry, he whispered as her vision blurred. But Yura's paying triple what Kong does. Nothing personal. The world tilted and went dark. When Maya woke, her head pounding and her wrists zip-tied behind her back, she was in a chair in a familiar room. The Azure Pearl's private dining room. The same room where this nightmare had started 3 months ago. The table was set for dinner, crystal and silver gleaming under soft lighting, as if this were just another elegant meal. Yura sat across from her, immaculate in a navy Dior suit, sipping wine like they were old friends catching up. Welcome back, Maya, Yura said, her smile sharp as broken glass. I thought it was fitting we returned to where it all began. This time, there's no husband to protect you. No guards. No rules. She set down her wine glass and leaned forward. This time, I'm going to finish what I started. Behind Yura, 2 men in tactical gear stood silent and ready. The restaurant was empty, closed for a private event. Through the windows, Seoul glittered in the afternoon sun, oblivious to what was happening in this elegant cage. Maya tested the zip ties. No give. Her phone was gone. The penthouse security had no idea where she was. Jaewon was still tied up dealing with police corruption, probably didn't even know yet that she was missing. She was alone with the woman who'd put a bounty on her head, in a room designed to swallow screams behind soundproof walls. Nothing to say? Yura asked, tilting her head mockingly. Where's all that confidence from the gala? All those practice speeches Seo-yoon taught you. Maya lifted her chin and met Yura's eyes, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing fear. If she was going to die here, she'd die like the woman Jaewon had trained her to become. He's going to destroy you for this, Maya said quietly. Yura's smile widened. Let him try. The windows of the Azure Pearl exploded inward in a shower of glass and smoke. Maya threw herself sideways as the chair tipped, hitting the floor hard as gunfire erupted. Yura's guards returned fire, but they were outmatched and outgunned. Jaewon's team came through the broken windows like a tactical unit, precise and lethal, clearing the room in under 30 seconds. Then Jaewon was there, cutting through her zip ties with a knife, his hands checking her face, her arms, searching for injuries. His eyes were wild, darker than she'd ever seen them, pupils dilated with adrenaline and rage. Are you hurt? His voice was rough, barely controlled. I'm fine, Maya managed. Jaewon, how did you? The security cameras. Han found the footage 20 minutes after they took you. He pulled her to her feet, keeping his body between her and the room. I'll kill him. I'll kill everyone who touched you. But Yura was already moving. She'd slipped toward the kitchen during the chaos, one of her guards providing cover. Maya saw her reaching for something in her jacket. A gun. Jaewon. Maya shoved him aside as Yura fired. The bullet grazed his shoulder, spinning him around. He went down on one knee, blood spreading across his white shirt. Yura leveled the gun at Maya, her hand steady now, her face a mask of pure hatred. You took everything from me. Everything. No, Jaewon said, rising despite the wound, his voice cutting through the chaos with absolute authority. You destroyed yourself. He pulled out his phone, tapping the screen once. Every television in the restaurant flickered to life, showing the same news broadcast. Maya's eyes widened as she recognized the anchor, one of Korea's most respected journalists, speaking with grave severity. Breaking news tonight as prosecutors announced charges against former Assemblyman Blair and his family network. Documents leaked to our newsroom reveal 2 decades of embezzlement, bribery, and money laundering. Yura's face went white. What did you do? I gave them everything. Jaewon's smile was cold and merciless. Every offshore account your family maintained. Every bribe your father paid. Every law your mother's charity violated. 20 years of corruption, all documented and verified, delivered to every major news outlet in the country 2 hours ago. The gun trembled in Yura's hand. You're bluffing. My family has protection. Your family had protection, Jaewon corrected. Until I showed the prosecutors how your father funded his political campaigns with syndicate money, including mine. They're seizing everything right now. The houses, the cars, the art collection. Your mother's already in custody. On the screens, footage showed police vehicles surrounding the Blair family estate, officers leading an older woman in handcuffs past a mob of reporters. Your family's name is over, Jaewon continued, each word precise as a blade. You're not just divorced and humiliated. You're the daughter of the biggest political corruption scandal in a decade. No syndicate will touch you. No family will shelter you. You're radioactive. Yura's gun hand dropped to her side. She looked at the screens, at her mother being paraded in disgrace, at the legacy of power and influence evaporating in real time. She'd gambled everything on revenge and lost it all. You didn't have to use violence, Jaewon said softly, walking toward her. You just had to understand that I'm always 3 moves ahead. Seo-yoon? His head of security emerged from the shadows and took Yura's gun with professional efficiency. There's a car waiting, Mrs. Kong. You're being relocated to a facility where you can't hurt anyone else. Yura looked at Maya one last time, and for a moment, her mask cracked. She looked old, tired, defeated. He'll hurt you too, she whispered. Eventually. That's what men like him do. Maya stepped forward, standing at Jaewon's side despite the blood on his shoulder. He's not like you, she said. That's the difference. They watched as Yura was escorted out, no longer a queen but a prisoner of her own rage and ambition. The penthouse felt different in the silence that followed. Jaewon's shoulder had been bandaged by a private doctor who asked no questions and left no records. The broken windows were being replaced by a crew that worked through the night. Outside, Seoul continued its rhythm, unaware that one of its most dangerous power struggles had finally ended. Maya stood in the guest room that had become hers over the past 4 months, staring at the designer clothes hanging in the closet. Valentino, Givenchy, Armani. A wardrobe worth more than most people's homes, and none of it truly hers. Just part of the costume. Jaewon appeared in the doorway, his arm in a sling, exhaustion carved into the lines of his face. The prosecutor confirmed it an hour ago. Yura's family is cooperating fully in exchange for reduced sentences. She'll be monitored in a psychiatric facility indefinitely. No assets, no connections, no way to hurt you. So it's over, Maya said softly. It's over. He stepped into the room, and she noticed he was carrying papers. The contract. Which means our agreement is complete. You're free, Maya. Free to go back to your life, to school, to whatever future you want. Your debts are cleared. Your grandmother's care is funded for life. I keep my promises. Maya looked at the clothes again, at the reflection of the woman she'd become in the mirror. Not the terrified waitress who'd been slapped 4 months ago, but not entirely Maya Fields either. Someone in between. Someone forged in silk and survival. I should pack, she said, surprised by how hollow her voice sounded. Jaewon nodded once, formal and distant, and left. Maya heard his office door close down the hall with a finality that felt like a chapter ending. She packed slowly, leaving the expensive dresses behind. They belonged to Jaewon's fiancé, not to her. She took only what she'd brought and a few comfortable things Madame Choi had insisted were appropriate for civilian life. Her hands shook as she zipped the suitcase. This was what she'd wanted, wasn't it? Freedom. Her life back. So why did it feel like losing something irreplaceable? The elevator was at the end of the hall, its polished doors reflecting her image back at her. Maya pressed the button, watching the numbers climb. 15th floor. 25th. 35th. She didn't hear him approach until his hand shot out, slamming against the elevator panel, stopping the doors from opening. "Don't go." Jaewon's voice was raw, stripped of all the control and calculation she'd grown used to. He was standing so close she could feel the heat of him, see the way his chest rose and fell with unsteady breaths. The contract. The contract was fake, he said, and Maya's breath caught. "I had my lawyers draft it to make you feel safe, but it was never legally binding. You could have left any time. I needed you to stay." "Why?" The word came out as a whisper. "Because somewhere between teaching you to walk in heels and watching you destroy Yura with 3 sentences, I fell in love with you." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "I fell in love with your strength, your defiance, the way you refused to break even when you had every reason to. You weren't just playing a part, Maya. You became the woman I didn't know I'd been waiting for." The elevator chimed. The doors started to open. Maya dropped her suitcase and kissed him. His good arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer as the elevator doors closed on empty air, continuing its journey without them. The kiss was nothing like the careful public displays they'd performed for cameras. This was real, desperate, for months of tension finally breaking like a dam. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Jaewon rested his forehead against hers. "Stay. Not as my fiancé. Not as protection. Stay because you want to. Stay because whatever this is between us, it's worth finding out." Maya smiled, really smiled, for the first time in months. "I was terrified you were going to let me leave." "Never," he whispered. "You're the only thing that's ever scared me more than losing would be letting you walk away." The elevator returned, empty and waiting. This time, neither of them moved toward it. If you loved watching Maya and Jaewon's journey from that terrifying slap to that epic final kiss, smash that like button right now. Share this story with everyone who needs a dose of intense romance and mafia drama. And listen, you absolutely need to subscribe and hit that notification bell because we have so many more explosive love stories coming your way. Don't miss out. Subscribe now and join our family of romance lovers. Trust me, you'll want to be here for what's coming next.